And we are recording with Mr. Gregory Wrightstone on Thursday, June 8th, 2023 at 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time. We're talking about the CO2 Coalition. And if you go into the description, you can find a link to his book, you can find a link to his Twitter, you can find a link to his Facebook, and you can find a link to his website. And talking about, I've had on Dr. Patrick Moore before, twice, the co-founder of Greenpeace, and it's the wildest thing to hear him talk about how much of a power grab and a money grab all of this, and this isn't from some redneck. This is the guy that co-founded Greenpeace, and he's on here talking about how it's all BS. But with that, Mr. Wrightstone, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the executive director of the CO2 Coalition. I'm a geologist by training, and I've got a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in geology. I was accepted as an expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and I wrote my #1 best-selling book. It's now been out for 6.5 years, and just 2 weeks ago, it was back as a #1 bestseller in 3 categories. And I have no idea why, but it's been continually near the top or #1 bestseller in a couple of the categories: climatology, environmental policy, environmental science. So it's really incredible to have a book that continues to go that far and sell that well. So I'm real proud. I'm working on my second book, but before we get into that,
Sure.
I was I was driven to write my first book, Inconvenient Facts, uh, because I knew that some of the things we were being told about climate change were just incorrect as a geologist.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing was ocean acidification. I knew that it had never happened in the past. CO2 levels were uh, many times what they are today. They were up to 8,000 parts per million, and the oceans never acidified.
Yeah.
They didn't acidify then, they're not going to acidify now. And so I suspect that other things that we were being told were incorrect. And so the book was a result of my own personal search for the truth about climate change. I went back, I didn't want to trust anybody. So I went back and looked at the base data myself, to look at sea level rise, to look at fires, to look at um, again, ocean acidification,
Mm-hmm.
floods, droughts, all the things we hear that are being driven by climate change. And just time and time and time again, I found that what we were being told were completely opposite of what we found and what I found, backed up by science, facts, and data. And so that's really what drove me to write this book. And I'm finishing up my second book now. It will be more of an exploration and celebration of the benefits of warming and CO2. And that's right, I said benefits, because what we're seeing are huge by almost every metric you look at. The Earth's ecosystems are thriving and prospering. Humanity's benefiting uh, from global warming and more CO2.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And it's not by a little, it's by a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what you said, that's a very important point, because that's what Dr. Patrick Moore brought up as well. And if this podcast had a big ExxonMobil sticker in the background, I can understand where someone might be skeptical and go, why are you talking about climate change? Why are you talking about this? But I think it's actually something more important. And what you just pointed out is it's a celebration. And what Dr. Moore pointed out is it's a relief in that it is important to talk about, because there's an existential dread being shoved down our throats every day, and that robs you of your day-to-day life. If every day you're being told that hell's coming to earth, it's over, we are the cancer on this Garden of Eden that God has gifted us with, you start to feel a little guilty. And then when you have scientists come on and say, hey, not only is it not bad, we're actually moving in the right direction. We're actually moving in the right. You're doing good. You're doing good. It's when you're upset when you're a little kid because you broke something and you're like, it's over, and your parents are like, it's fine, you made it's nothing's wrong. It so it's more than just you're not wrong. It's a deeply philosophical and mental health issue. It's everything's okay. It's really okay. Go enjoy the sunshine. It's a good day.
We need to get that word out, particularly the younger generations. They're being brainwashed, and people are deciding not to have children because the world's going to end in
It's gonna
X.
be dead in 10 years.
Right, and that's just not so. Um, we need to, again, we should celebrate the benefits, and they're just being lied to. A whole generation of scared kids that are just, they can't sleep at night. They're having psychological problems. They actually believe that we're on the edge of the earth being destroyed. And just, but I think there are a lot of people that don't buy into this. In fact, I'm really optimistic. I'm really hugely optimistic about what I see. I talk to lots of people as I travel, just random people, not
Hmm.
my, that would be in my sphere, but just, in airports or wherever. And I bring it up, and people are thirsty for this information that we can provide, and we are providing. People are going, their eyes get wide, and they go, really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Why? Basically, it ends up, why are they lying to us? If I show them the facts and the data, and you can go download a lot of the material that I talk about. It's in my book on my smartphone app. It's called Inconvenient Facts. It's free, so I'm not making any money at it.
I'll make a note of that. I'll make sure to put it in the
And
description.
don't download it right now.
Yeah.
It's easy. Inconvenient Facts, Google Play or the App Store.
I'll look it up right
You'll be
now.
amazed. It's got these
Inconvenient.
60 inconvenient facts. That way, if you're with your idiot cousin Billy at Thanksgiving dinner, and Billy says, "Hey, Tommy, did you know polar bears are going extinct?" There it is. Bam. And you can go to
Download it.
fact number go to fact number 53. There's a drop down menu at the top. Uh,
Come on, tell me
and
more
in
about
fact,
Billy. Let's keep
all
yelling at
right.
Billy. Tell me about
So
Billy
there's
first.
yeah. Well, fact number 53. You can go, well, Billy. Actually, you can pull out your smartphone app and you go, here's
Got it.
a chart showing 60 years of polar bear population. If you hit that, you're going to get a chart that shows polar bear population history. There you go.
Yeah.
There's also a video that I created with it. There's also there's a sort. It goes to the source of the data. It's important.
Yep. Yep.
Not that
Yep.
we just show the
Yep.
chart. What's the source of it? And this was Susan Crockford, probably
Crockford,
the top,
2017. Yeah.
right. She's the top polar bear expert in the world,
There you
and it
go.
was her data. So these are the kind of things you can do with a smartphone app you have in the palm of your hands, and it's powerful. People are loving it. Uh, it was interesting. I rolled that out on the Glenn Beck show. This was a number of years ago,
Yeah.
and it just exploded. 2 days later, Apple removed it from the App Store because it was
That means you're
and
doing it
and
right,
the
man. That means you're doing it right.
and so the reasoning was they said it lacked compelling content. Really? This thing's a state of the art app. Go go look for other apps about climate change. They look like failed middle school science fair projects. And this thing is just incredible. Um, and also they said that it didn't incorporate the intrinsic features of the iPhone. I
What?
went,
You
okay.
mean the touch screen? What are you talking about?
Well, it could be used as they said your app could be a web-based app. Well, yeah, it could, but what other, I mean, how many apps do you have that? And I shook my head, and it blew up. It was the Daily Mail, Heritage Foundation. I know those people over there, they wrote about it that day. They've got millions of followers. Got picked up by, and I was on with Laura Ingraham that night, and One America News back when it was big,
Yeah.
when there was One America News.
Yeah.
And I had a whole raft of big interviews, Fox and Friends, just over the next couple of days, and so the sales of the book absolutely blew up. And I was selling books right and left. It was number one in 5 categories. And it was just, and my app developer says, well, Greg, I think I figured this out. And I think we could get this app back up. And I said, no, you're not. We're going to milk this thing for as long as it'll go.
Yeah.
And so we milked it for about another month and a half. And then we ended up if you have an iPhone, there's a button there. You can take a picture. using my app. And at the bottom of the picture, it says, I heart CO2. So you can take a picture of everything with that little I love CO2 at the bottom of the picture. And they said, okay, well, now you're using the iPhone feature. Now you're okay to put it up.
It's
I don't know.
it's that's kind of, I don't know why that's sticking with me that it could be a web based. Yeah, I can also log into Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. What point are you making? But
Oh, I mean, there's an app that shows a rotating ruby. That's all it does. It's an image of a ruby. We looked at that and go, how can that qualify? And
well,
this,
and then you realize that their argument of it's not intrinsic value is all they have for the same reason that I was banned from YouTube for interviewing Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone about COVID deaths, and they said it was hate speech, and I asked what part of it was hate speech, and then they blocked my email. So I mean, the reality is you're arguing with children, and I want to go back to the kind of the philosophical when you're talking about going to airports and people's eyes get big is there's a reason why it's June 2023, but there's a reason why I still do COVID episodes with doctors. And the very simple truth is this. I'm personally tired of the topic. I've done hundreds of these podcasts about COVID. I track my data on all my episodes across all platforms. Nothing outperforms everything else, like finding out about COVID. So one, the people want it. So I'm just responding to the market. But the second thing is it's not, someone might say, well, what's the harm with social distancing? What's the harm with taking extra precautions? There aren't any. There's no harm with pinching pennies, with saving, right? But when it gets to a point where it's ruining your life, and as someone that had clinical OCD in college, there's nothing wrong with having a routine and with managing your time. When it is limiting your ability to live your life, which it was for me 10 years ago, it does ruin your life. So no, there's nothing wrong with taking a little extra vitamin D or washing your hands. Sure. But when it's ruining your life, when it's when you're not visiting family for holidays because you're scared you're going to kill grandma, when grandma's dying alone in an ICU and you're not allowed to visit her, it is ruining your life. So back to the climate changes. No, there's nothing wrong with recycling. Sure. There's nothing wrong with, turning off your car if you're idling. Yeah, by all means, save energy, save money. Yeah, don't waste, waste not, want not. But when it is ruining your life, when you are not taking part in the base joy of humanity of getting married and having kids, when you are terrified of not planning for the next 10 years because the ocean's going to turn to hydrochloric acid and you're going to die, yeah, man, it's robbing you of your everyday life. And I think that is why people watch the COVID episodes. And I think that's why you talk to people at the airport and their eyes get big, is because there's a deep sense of relief that we are all so desperately yearning for. And I think there's probably a similarity there.
well, I think the COVID message resonates, and people now are very skeptical of the experts.
Of everything, across all fields.
Mhm. And so that helps us because we're saying there's a consensus of experts, and there isn't. Actually, if we talk about this so-called 97% consensus, the definition of it is I would be part of that consensus because I believe that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and I believe that CO2 contributes to atmospheric warming. I just don't think it's very big, and it's overwhelmed by natural forces. But it's there, and it does contribute, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm really good with more CO2 and a little bit more warming. In fact,
Yeah.
actually, a lot more warming will be good.
Yeah.
We can get into that in a little bit about what has happened over the
Yeah.
last several thousand years when it got really warm.
Can we,
What
can we
happened?
can we touch on that? What has happened?
Oh, okay. You ready? This is one of my favorites. This is a whole section of my next book that
All right.
it's this. There's a strong relationship between the rise and fall of temperature and the rise and fall of civilizations. And we see that if you go back to going back to the very first great empires and civilizations that rose up, the Harappan of the Indus Valley, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, um, the first Chinese, the old Egypt, all these great empires rose up during the first of the great warm periods during human civilization. It was called the Minoan warm period. It was also related to the Bronze Age, and so we had the invention of the wheel, chariots. Uh, Again, these great empires. rose up and thrived. Food was bountiful, and it was a lot warmer then than it was today. And we know that by historical facts. For example, they were growing a crop called millet in Scandinavia. Well, millet's only grown in subtropical climates, and so it had to have been a lot warmer. That's just one example
Mm-hmm.
that we know it was warmer. And then it started getting cold quickly, and it led to what was called the late Bronze Age collapse. Every one of those civilizations within a very short period of this cold period collapsed. And it was like each one of these cold periods that we'll talk about, it led to crop failure, famine, pestilence, and mass depopulation. It doesn't get worse than that. And so what that did was it stressed the empires. And let's say you were Emperor Tommy, and in the Carrigan Empire, you were Emperor Tommy, and you were good.
Yeah.
While it was warm and you could provide food for all your subjects. I think you'd make a great emperor, by the way.
Thank
But
you, sir.
uh, but then it started getting cold, and you'd be in a heap of trouble because you couldn't your food stores dried up. You couldn't feed your subjects. Now they're coming after you with the torches and pitchforks.
Mm.
And all those empires were overthrown and collapsed. And that led to this cold period of many hundreds of years. It was called the Greek Dark Ages. And we really don't know much because civilization
Went on
basically
ice.
disappeared.
No
It
pun intended.
disappeared.
Went on ice.
And it didn't get recovered until what was called the Roman warm period. That was the time of the time of Christ. Again, the Romans were able to an army marches on its stomach,
I
and
was
the
about to
Romans,
say, I was going to use the quote. You beat me to it. An army's marches on full stomachs.
and so they at that time during that warm period, Egypt and North Africa was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire, which is a lot different than today. And again, it was much warmer then. The Romans were growing citrus in the north of England. You can't do that today. We have we know that they were growing grapes and olives much further north in France and Germany. But then again, it started getting, there are a number of reasons the Roman Empire collapsed. I'm a big proponent of it being temperature related, that the hooligans from the north, the cold as it started cooling, they were driven south and they were able to get through the pass as they sacked Rome, and it wasn't just Rome that collapsed, but all the others. And it was a time it went into what was called the Dark Ages, and again, it was horrific. More than half the population of the earth perished. It was just pestilence and diseases run rampant, and we saw that from the COVID era. That cold periods, people were driven indoors. And again, they brought their animal. It got really cold. And so they brought their animals in, and you're inside for months at a time so you can transfer diseases. We know that flu can survive. It's a cold weather disease. It just is, and all these others. And then again, it didn't get better until this third great warming, the medieval warm period. It was the time of the High Middle Ages. Life was good, food was bountiful, people prospered, populations exploded, again because they could feed their subjects. And this all again it was called the High Middle Ages, and we know it was much warmer. If you recall, Vikings settled on Greenland, and they were growing a crop, barley. We know they were growing. We can find the remains. They were growing barley on Greenland. And that's a crop that can't be grown in the cold weather of Greenland today. And again, we have other historical records. We have scientific data we can use to assess what the temperatures were. But I find people, if you tell them, well, the olives were being grown 300 miles further north than they are today, people go, oh, it must have been warmer. Or they had vineyards hundreds of miles further north. And it was a time, and then it started getting cold again. It led into the little ages. And I'm going to test you here.
Okay.
And so as it started getting cold in the Middle Ages, again, crops failed, famine set in, people started dying, and they blamed it on weather causing witches. Okay, there were great witch hunts of during this time as we're getting into the little ice age. Just like today, they're blaming floods, fires, and all the rest. We're the witches
Mm-hmm.
of the world because they're blaming that on climate change. I call it our sins of emission, but uh, little play on words there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so it started warming up. These were huge, a large number of. In fact, I've got a chart in my new book. I compare the number of witches killed per decade with really cold temperatures because they kept great records of the witches as they killed them. And so I've compared witches killed per decade and temperature. And there's a pretty good correlation. And then around 1500, it warmed up again and crops came back. And once again, life was so. Tommy, tell me, why did it warm up and the crops come back?
Well, it must have been because we killed all the witches.
You nailed it.
We
That's what they said. That's what they said at that
we
time.
did
They
it
said,
right.
"Oh, we're good. We killed all the witches. Life is good. We must give praise to
Oh
God."
man.
And
You
and
know
they,
what they're gonna do? They're gonna use the very data from your book and saying how crops are going up and biodiversity is going up, and they're gonna say it's because of 2 years of COVID lockdowns.
yeah, I don't know about that.
They might. I don't know. Sorry, keep going.
But actually, that warm period only lasted 40 years, and then it really started getting cold, and that's when the really big witch hunts took place. And those didn't end until temperature turned, uh, and now we've been in a warming trend for over 300 years. So, are we in a warming trend? Yes. When did it start? At the end of the 17th century, over 300 years ago. We've had warming in fits and starts ever since, long before we started adding CO2, long before we were driving SUVs, the warming trend we're in started. And so the first 250 years of this 300-year warming had to have been naturally driven. And they're going to say, oh, don't look at that. No, 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 no. You can only look at the last 50 or 80 years. Uh, I'll say the same. The warming of the first 250 years was naturally driven. Those natural forces did not stop at the middle of the 20th century. Those same natural forces are in place today and working, driving temperatures up and down. And there's some real problems with this notion of CO2 driven warming. Just as we started adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere in that post World War II economic boom of the late
Mm-hmm.
40s and 50s, just as we started adding lots of CO2, we went into a 33-year cooling trend into the late 70s. As when I was in college, um, I was a geologist we were studying, and we'd had 33 years of cooling, and it sure looked like we were going into the next ice age. But CO2 kept going up and up, and temperature kept going down and down. And then it turned in the late 70s, and it's been warming in fits and starts since then. But we've been a warming trend since the
Mm-hmm.
late 70s. Uh, what's interesting right now, I don't know if you want. So we'll get into the El Nino effect
Yeah,
of
talk about
what's
whatever. There's no direction. Keep going.
uh, it's something I've been exploring a lot recently. It's called the ENSO, uh, Southern Oscillation, the El Nino Southern Oscillation of the Pacific Ocean. That we have this El Nino warming effect in the central and eastern Pacific that washes up against South America. And it really leads every time we have an El Nino, which looks like we're just starting right now, we get a warming effect. And it's fascinating, these El Nino events. I've just completed a beautiful chart comparing those to satellite temperature, and you see just a strong relationship between each one of these events and temperature rise. Um, and there's actually a better correlation between the El Ninos and temperature than there is CO2 and temperature. The other opposite of the El Nino is called La Nina, which is cooling, and we've been in a La Nina now for since 2016. So it's been
7.
7 years, 7.5 years of if you look, we've had a slight decrease in temperature since 2016. It's not increasing at all. And we have had a slight decrease in temperature, which is completely, again, as we continue to add CO2, they tell us we have to stop because every molecule of CO2 causes warming. Oh, really? Well, why hasn't it been warming then? But we'll probably see some more warming. There was only one period in 1991 to 95. There was a big El Nino back to back, and we saw actually a cooling event. And you might say, well, Greg, there was cooling and there were El Ninos. Yes, but there was also Mount Pinatubo and Mount Hudson that erupted pretty close to each other that sent huge amounts of sulfate, particularly in the equatorial region. If you have these explosive volcanoes, they can circle the Earth for years and provide. What it does is reflect. It's like geoengineering naturally, where it reflects the sunlight up into space instead of reaching the Earth and warming. And so that was probably the warming there was probably negated by these large volcanoes that went off. And just as an FYI, there's a lot of misinformation out there about volcanoes. You might have read that, well, it's not really man-made CO2 that's increasing, it's from volcanoes. No, that's just categorically 100% wrong. The CO2 that's in the atmosphere that's increasing, we've increased from 280 to 420 parts per million. It's from our emissions. It just is. It's burning of fossil fuels. It's cement manufacture. There's a few other small things. And that's okay. If you look on the back of my SUV, I've got a bumper sticker that says, I heart CO2. And that's our motto of the CO2 Coalition is we love CO2 and so should you. We're big proponents. I don't have a stress. I was going to get my stress ball. I've got we give out stress balls at conventions that says, don't stress. There is no climate crisis.
I was going to say you should make them CO2 molecules. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool stress ball.
And so the volcanoes are. It's been very interesting. And actually, that period we talked about from the 50s, 40s to the late 70s were dominated by these La Nina cooling events. And then from the late 70s till now, at least, we've been dominated by El Nino warming. And that's exactly when we saw the turnaround with atmospheric temperature change.
So eventually someone would have to come to the question of, it was like, okay, so it's all bonk, like everything's okay. And then like the witch hunts, you then go into the psychology of it and you go, okay, well, so we did the witch hunts and then the temperature warms, so therefore we did the right thing. But you got to back up even a little more and go, well, who's benefiting from this? Is there a big corporate witch hunt industrial complex? Are there people whose penthouses are being bought by this? And that is where, much like COVID, it's not just that it was a vaccine versus ivermectin. It was a bunch of corporations making billions and trillions of dollars and not being sued by the government versus a generic medication that no one was making money off of. It makes me raise an eyebrow. So when I see this and I go, well, on one hand, it's everything's fine, and then the argument people will make is let's say climate change isn't real. Then oh no, that means that we became energy independent for nothing. No, that's fair. We should be energy independent from tyrannical theocratic dictatorships in the Middle East. I get that. But when I look at, well, what would be the result of enacting change to combat climate change, it's not as simple as we should all recycle and don't flush the toilet as often as you do. Well, no, it's sweeping governmental powers. It's sweeping contracts for crony capitalism. It's sweeping erosion of your civil liberties. And then that's where I go, it's not who cares if we hedge our bets. It's actually evil. It's evil, and there are people who are pushing this to enrich themselves and to consolidate their power.
Well, with COVID, it was a little easier to point to somebody making a lot of money at it.
Sure.
Here that we don't.
It's very murky with this.
Well, you probably could get the renewable industry,
Mm-hmm.
the solar and wind panel. I mean, they're obviously benefiting from this, but the other people are, why is Biden and these people are just deluded.
Well,
I
it's a
I'm
power
all
grab.
yeah, I'm often asked that question, and basically what you're asking is why are they lying to us? And just to put it bluntly, and I don't know. I just
Sure.
I I'm asked, well, why are they lying to us? And I'll tell you what I tell all my hosts are that you, Tommy, are just as qualified as I am to say why they're doing it. I'm a scientist, and I can tell you this is what they're telling you, and here's the data that disputes it. That's my job as a
That's your,
scientist.
yeah,
And I can't see inside men's and women's souls to see their motivation,
sure.
but I can do say what I can do is say
It's
they're
not. They're lying
they're either lying
or they're
or
wrong.
they're just uninformed.
No,
And
and
I think it's a combination of both.
no, that's a very fair point, and definitely should clarify. Everything I'm saying is speculation. We can't know why. We know that they are A, lying, or B, they're wrong. Anything besides, and then yeah, this we can't follow the money. It's not that ExxonMobil has moved to solar panel
One
production.
one
It's
follows the other. One follows the other. When you say what they're doing it for control, they're doing it for this, they're doing it for well, one follows the other. I can say they're here's the truth. And what are the results? The results are we're losing control of our freedoms. The results are economic destruction. The results are higher taxation. Uh, there are all these things that have followed from this. We have our loss of freedoms, our loss of choice to drive the car we want,
mhm.
how we want. They want us all to heat our homes with heat pumps. I don't know if you've ever used a heat pump. It works pretty well from about 40 degrees, 38 degrees to about 75 or 78. It gets too hot, too cold, boy, it doesn't work very well at all. You better have some backup.
Hmm.
Uh, better get a propane heater or something to fire that air conditioner up. So that's what they want. They're just now pushing regulations for dishwashers. Uh, we saw how that works out with the toilets. That you got to flush them twice instead of once uh, to save water. Well, most of the most of the nation doesn't need to conserve water. We're, if you'll forgive me, awash in water. We have plenty of water. We don't have that. That's not the case in Phoenix, Arizona, or Los Angeles. Well, those would be a good place for them to establish water conservation procedures.
Sure.
But if you're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or Waterbury, Connecticut, or wherever it is, you don't need to conserve water because you've got an abundance of it. And so what they want to do is a one size fits all policy for dishwashers, for uh, toilets, and it's just stupid. You have to run the dishwasher now twice.
Yeah, it's to go back to what you said, and it's something that a lot of the doctors will say on this pod. There are a lot of parallels between COVID and climate change, and they'll say, Tommy, I can tell you why, as a molecular biologist, what they're saying is wrong. And they'll often say the exact same line. I cannot peer into their head and tell you why. And that's a very, that's an intellectual level of honesty that I probably need to utilize more is I don't know. What I would say is we could try to quantify it. We could, instead of opinions, instead of, I believe this or that, we could say, you know, we could look at bills being passed. We could look at budgets of Department of Homeland Security. We could say NSA data centers growing. We could say new task force, new subdivisions of the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security. Are these climate change related? Is the NRO and the National Geospatial Agency, are they now doing more climate monitoring? You could maybe quantify it and go, okay, there doesn't seem to be a money grab like COVID, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson Johnson. This seems more like the currency is power and power consolidation. And if you really wanted to and you had the ability to, you could probably quantify that through actual, here are the number of bills being passed, here's the budget being increased, here's the number of personnel. I don't have that data. And again, everything I'm saying is wild speculation. I think, in my humble opinion, I think it is a power grab. I don't know if
Mhm.
they believe it. They might believe it. They might be true believers. But
Mhm.
whether they are incorrect or whether they are outright lying, to me, the effect is the same. Is it's a wild group think. If you oppose it, you are painted as an evil person that wants the world to die, and you don't want green grass and blue skies. And it is going to result in a stronger and stronger overreach, top down control from a centralized government, and less freedom for you and I.
Mhm. Well,
That's, yeah.
let's look at what they're telling us right now. They're telling us we can't let the temperature rise more than a degree and a half Celsius. You've heard that, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
got to be
over.
it's got to be held under a degree and a half. And they don't really explain that. So let me explain. Let's take a look. This degree and a half of warming is from a baseline of the little ice age before the Industrial Revolution. We've already warmed 1 degree Celsius. What they're really saying is not 1.5 degrees. What they're really saying is we can't let it warm another half a degree Celsius. Okay. That's 9/10 of a degree Fahrenheit. If your room that you're sitting in right now in your studio warmed or cooled 9/10 of a degree, you couldn't tell. If it warmed or cooled, your thermostat wouldn't kick on because it's not even it can't even it won't kick on for that small amount. If you're that worried about half a degree Celsius, 9/10 of a degree Fahrenheit, if you're really concerned and you think it's going to lead to tragedy, move 30 miles farther north. Your average temperature will decline 9/10 of a degree Fahrenheit. Or alternatively, if you're near a hilly area, you could move 500 feet higher elevation. And again, you'd avoid this climate catastrophe of the next 9/10 of a degree Fahrenheit. We get more than 9/10 of a degree Fahrenheit between 10 a.m. and noon every single day. And that's what they're saying. Oh, we can't let it warm 9/10 of a degree. Really? Really? It's gonna again, you can't feel it if it got that if it had that change. And all hell's gonna come down on us if it does get 9/10 of a degree warmer.
Yeah.
Stupid. Just any common sense, sane individual will look and go, what? These people are nuts. And they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Having gone to school in southern Georgia for 2 years and Valdosta State University and now living in Portland, Maine. Yeah, I can tell you there's quite a difference. And I don't know. Life seems to be cheeky. Everything's just moving
Yeah,
along as
I've been
normal.
to Valdosta. I've been to
You've been to
Valdosta.
Valdosta?
Oh my God. In college, I had a buddy of mine lived there.
Where'd you go to
We took,
college?
well, this was West Virginia
Okay.
University. And so Bert and his wife, he was in Valdosta, and we went down and stayed with him and his parents and we had a gullible friend of ours from Yonkers, New York, and we took him on a snipe hunt in Valdosta. I'll never forget that. And um, what was the point was I going to make about
Valdosta
that?
temperature difference?
Yeah,
Deep
yeah,
south, Portland, Maine. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a trillion degrees in Valdosta, Georgia. I
Well,
went,
I'm calling you from, yeah, good. I
yeah.
love it. I'm calling you from south of Tampa right now, my home. I work out on my lanai every day. I love it. Got my
Oh
fans out
God.
there. Huh?
I said, oh God, I ran away from the heat. I'm up in Portland, Maine, where it's nice and chill, and it's not even cold enough for me now.
Oh, well, you'll be interested to know. We're doing a series of state and regional studies. We've done Pennsylvania, Virginia. I just finished up the Midwest. It's called American Midwest and Climate Change. America's breadbasket is good and getting better. It's about just almost everything we look at in the Midwest that's thriving and prospering. Crops are breaking records year after year. The biggest heat waves were in the 20s and 30s. If you look at maximum temperature, has been in decline. Low temperatures have been increasing, and that's a good thing. We're not as cold, so we've been trending up a little bit. But we don't see this climate crisis. Everything states and regions we've looked at, but we're going to be looking at New England. We've had people Connecticut, New Hampshire reach out, but we can't do each one of these tiny New England states. I
Yeah.
think it's better just to lump them all
Yeah.
together.
Everyone
Uh,
does.
right, and so I mean we'll be able to include then. Uh, talk about the Maine lobstermen, and they're being impacted now by the offshore wind. They're being their livelihoods are being cut short, and it's bad what they're doing. And the offshore wind we're fighting here off of the East Coast, these large wind farms that are, it sure looks like they're injuring and killing dolphins and whales,
Yeah.
particularly the right whale is endangered, and they're just charging right ahead. They don't care, they're, well, what about save the whales?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's only if you're a Japanese whaling ship. We're allowed to kill them because the ends justify the means. And if the right whale becomes extinct, well, it's just the price we have to pay to go to a
Yeah.
global renewable energy system. And I mean, their solution. I took a look at, if you take a look at extinctions, there was a UN report a year and a half ago. If you had Patrick Moore on, he may have talked about it because he testified before the U.S. Senate. And I fed him my information on that. The UN report claimed that there'd be 1,000 species that were in threat of extinction over the next several decades. Now, bear in mind, 1 million species in that time frame would require 25,000 to 30,000 species going extinct. And they had a chart in this UN report that was just skyrocketing. And I took a look at it, and the chart only had one data point per century. I said, And my BS detector started going off. And I went back and I looked at the same data. And it turns out that it's called the IUCN Red List. And I got their data and the same data they used. They provide data by every decade. And I went back and broke it out. And I found that extinctions peaked in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And we've been in significant decline of extinctions ever since the early 1900s, completely opposite of what they were saying. And remember, I said you need 25,000 to 30,000 extinctions per year to get to the 1 million they were claiming. You know what it's been for the last 40 years? Average per year, two extinctions per year. And what the UN's saying is, no, there'll be 25,000 to 30,000 per year. No, well, they're lying to you. It's another, they're just, and they do this. It's a statistical sleight of hand, and they thought they could get away with it. And that's our job, is to expose these cheats and liars and use the science and facts to do that.
Absolutely. And with that, Mr. Edson, we're gonna have to put a pin in it. I got another show in 2 minutes. I'm gonna send you an email. I'm gonna send you my number. I would love to do another one. You're a cool guy to talk to. I would genuinely love to do another one, and we can go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
That would be awesome. And again, guys, in the description, link to the Facebook, link to the Twitter, link to the website, link to the book. And dude, I'm excited about the next one. I'll send you an email. We'll get it on the books. Thank you so much for your time, man. And you got a badass mustache. I wish I could grow a mustache. I can't, but you got a badass mustache. For anybody listening, you should check it out. He's got like a 70s firefighter Delta Force mustache going on.
It's not a porn stash either.
Not a porn, no, it's not a porn stash. No,
No.
it's 1970s Delta Force. Yeah, and I respect it. I wish I could grow one. I can't. And so, with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Mr. Wrightstone, it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to talking to you again. Until next time,
Thank you.
thank you so